Hi friends, welcome back to another video. First thing to say is that it's presently, when I'm filming this, very early in the morning. So if I fall into a natural kind of quiet voice, despite the fact that no one in my immediate vicinity at all, because there's no one really in my immediate vicinity, can hear me. Although that's the case, I'm likely to talk like this because it's just sort of my default, like, be quiet in the morning lest you wake anyone up. So that's first thing. The second preface that I want to put out there is that this is going to likely be a video that mainly pertains to women. However, men, I will say that if you really do care about your woman, then perhaps this will in some way interest you, although you may respond the way my father does when anything about a woman's body comes up and go, la 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 la, I don't hear you, I don't need to know. Whatever your response is, understand that this is going to be a female body centric type video. So if you're not down for that, you know where the door is. Because I am a woman and a whole lot of the world is women, we're gonna talk about it for a second. So something that as a woman, and I'm not sure how personal I'll get with this video, however, I've shared before, I know that I have a pretty hard time during my time of the month. I think I've shared that here. It's always very difficult for me. And there are sort of two major problems that I run into with that. The first one is that for a woman, this happens every single month. If you're unlucky like me. Every month. Y'all, I know that this is a serious video. This is editing me interrupting to say that, oh my goodness, the quickness with which my face shifted from joking around about that to deadpan serious was amusing. Anyway, enjoy. Every month. Since whatever age you essentially acquired your wonderful hormones that caused you to go into puberty and develop into an adolescent, and all those wonderful things that give us our bits and pieces and all that stuff that I don't need to go into here. My first, again, sort of issue with this is that as a woman, for my entire life, for essentially one entire week, if you want to call, you know, all of this a calendar or something, this chunk is 1 week, the rest of this is the rest of the month, right? So out of every month of the year, for me, for most of my life, for a full week, understand that I pretty much could not function. Now, besides, as I have mentioned before in other videos, my brain is very efficiency wired. So aside from the fact that this is just, for me, generally very painful and very uncomfortable and requires me to release any kind of expectations, any kind of plans, any sort of really anything that I intended to do during that time when it does arrive at any rate. And the problem I have with that, of course, which I think is, you know, to be expected, is that we usually can't just stop our lives in a random place. You know, a lot of us have at least some responsibilities. Now, whether those what those responsibilities are will likely vary. You know, maybe for you, that's just your significant other, or maybe it's your pets, or maybe it's kids and pets and other family, who knows? The point is, most folks have some kind of responsibility in their lives. Encourages them not to completely stop, essentially. Well, here's the another problem with this. It's really hard to take care of yourself when you feel that unwell. And for me personally, when this time hits, it is always miserable. And I really don't say that to be dramatic. I actually only say that for the longer term point that I'm illustrating in this video, which is sort of a twofold point. The first point is the sheer amount of time that we as women, now I don't know if you men will appreciate this. However, from my perspective, let me share this. As a woman who, for frankly speaking, I had always intended to have children in my life. I really always thought that I would perhaps eventually give in to the physical urge to birthing a child and would give birth. However, in the length of time I've been alive, I've learned that more than likely I am not desiring to do that or going to be doing that. My choices lay within adoption. I can still technically have a child. However, I think the likelihood is very low because, as I've mentioned, I think in the whatever video I made about this uncomfortable stuff in women's hormones, I mentioned that because I have pretty severe I suspect, endometriosis. That, frankly, my whole feelings ever since I was a teenager and had my first moon, I've honestly always been like, you know what? If this torture is what kids come out of, then I think I'm okay. Like, now I'll pass. So in all likelihood, if I ever do have children in my life, they will likely be adopted. The point was, I had always seen children in my life, and it's something that over the years I decided that, you know what, as crazy as this sounds, it's not worth it for me, because the monthly time inside of my body was so serious and in a way traumatic that during this time of the month, all I can do, quite literally, I've come to terms with this now finally, really, is to rest, do my best to stay calm and centered and grounded, and nourish and take care of my body as much as I can. So if you're sitting here wondering, why am I making this video in the beginning of my moon? Why am I sharing it with the world? One, because there's a heck of a lot of women out there, and I felt like, let me talk about this, because when things happen like this to me, I often feel like, oh, I'm the only one experiencing this. And it very much helps me to know that, oh, actually, I'm not alone. Especially, you know, if you happen to have endometriosis, comment down below and perhaps share your story, especially if you've healed through that. I'm hoping that this is something I will be able to heal myself out of ultimately, because as I mentioned, for me, when this happens, I'm not exaggerating, I can barely do anything. My focus becomes 100% about my body and has to become taking care of my body and resting pretty much exclusively, to the exclusion of social life, to the exclusion of, honestly, work, which is sort of where I was going with my other point about the trouble with this issue for me, and maybe for maybe all women in the world. So let me paint this picture. Unlike a man, who I'm not anti-man, however, I'm just saying, where a man gets time off, they will find a drug to fix their private parts faster than you can say blinkety blink. And yet here we are, the women, who have physically birthed the children, who have quite a range of things that can happen wrong with our, ovaries and bits and pieces that produce the actual child, and all these complications. And yet, I'm going to try not to rant on this video, so I'm just going to make that face for now. However, the point I was going to say was, we're still paying money out of pocket for something that biologically happens to us every month, whether we want to or not. I've always had a personal issue with that. I don't know how y'all feel about that. Comment down below, any women who might want to jump in on this conversation. Are y'all happy that when Aunt Flo comes around, you also get to pay for that? Personally, I know we're kind of goofing about it, and also it's astounding that we have to pay for products that happen as a result of our bodies just doing their natural thing. The biggest issue that I always come up against with my hormones, quite frankly, is the fact that during that time, like I said, my primary and really only focus has to and can be me, my body, and my health and resting. Because quite frankly, if I don't prioritize minimizing the food that I eat, really making sure that I hydrate, resting, and I know I've said it probably 3 times in this video, rest is so important when it's really vital at times, like for us women when we're cleansing. So if you're a woman watching this video, to you I just want to say, sister, I empathize. If you have any tips, if you, like me, often your anxiety gets triggered by your hormones, do you have any tips for how you keep your mind calm? Because I'll share with you guys, just to end this, because I kind of think it's funny, so a little like, when I was having some tough anxiety the other day, decided to go back to ChatGPT, have a little dialogue, because it's sometimes helpful. And what I asked it was, I essentially asked, hey, is there any one fix-all type solution for anxiety that will stop your racing heart rate and the things that people who suffer from anxiety will be familiar with? And what was for me quite disheartening, if I'm being honest, was the fact that there was one response, and the response, first of all, was no, there's no one tool that works for everybody, hands down. The only suggestion that was offered was something they called a breath sigh, and particularly if you're a woman in this anxiety is triggered much more highly when you're on your moon, then I would suggest this. Because one of the most difficult things I face when I have hormonal anxiety or anxiety in general is my heart being like, literally feeling like I ran a mile, or like there's some big looming monster that I need to run from like yesterday. The number one tip, the number one effective thing that ChatGPT suggested from, I don't know, I suppose what all of the sources that it has to pull from, the number one thing that, and this is actually proven to work, and again, that's why I'm sharing it, is something called a breath sigh. And if you repeat that 2 to 3 times, it's proven to slow your heart rate a bit. And I have found that lately to be one of the most helpful things to calm my heart rate when my body is like, OMG, we're overstimulated, we're hormonal, and we have anxiety, and we have pain, and like, we don't know what to do. May that suggestion of the breath sigh help you, because apparently that is the only agreed upon method that works for everybody to calm your heart rate. I am not saying that this is a fix-all for anxiety. May this really help you in your potential times of struggle with anxiety, because out of the very, very many tools that there are, which all seem to be quite individual, I have found this one to actually really work. Before this becomes an Uber waffle, I wanted to just share that I think it's a bit sad that us women end up having, I'm not good enough at math to figure it all out. If you take 1 week of every month for however many years we've been alive, that's a lot of time lost to just having to take care of our body, of getting to take care of our body. And I've always found that a bit interesting, and if I'm honest, a little unfair, because I always felt like, and I'm slightly joking around, because when I was younger, I used to be like, that's really not fair. Men don't have anything like that they have to deal with every single month, you know, since they hit puberty. I used to get really upset about it and be like, that's not fair. I don't really understand why we as the children bearers also have to handle this. Perhaps one day I will understand the blessing in it all. I do understand the blessing of life, by the way, and I don't know, have mixed feelings, to be honest. It's a whole other separate subject for a video, which probably you guys don't even need to or want to hear, but my stance on like children and why I may or may not ever have them in my life. At any rate, I wish I had the choice to have an easier time with that, so that I could function a little bit, because when this hits me, I really have to take the whole time off of everything, which is wild. And it's I suppose it's sustainable, but if it's something that my life is going to continue, it's something I need to probably start planning for. So if you know anyone that this video could help, someone who needs to hear this message, please do share it with them. Subscribe, as that really helps me out as a content creator to get the message out there to those people who need to hear it. And last but not least, if you, my gorgeous spirit soul, need any support or coaching, particularly when it comes to your health, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at this email address, where it would be my pleasure to serve you in whatever way I can do. Have a beautiful and a blessed rest of your day or night. Namaste, much love, and I will see you, beautiful cats, in the next video. Stay healthy. Bye. I can barely do anything. Oh, actually, I'm not alone, but so like just sort of, no, if you're unlucky like me. If you want to call, you know, all of this a calendar, whatever. That was a great accent. Whatever, despite the fact that no one in my immediate vicinity at all, because there's no one really in my immediate vicinity, can hear me.